Actually, I'd love to have our board chair for the MTA, Gail Carr-Williams, start the event this evening.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Budget and Finance Committee. My name is Gail Carr-Williams, and I am the chair of the Board of Directors of the Metropolitan Transit Authority. With me today is our CEO, Steve Bland, and our Deputy CEO for Finance and Administration, Amanda Vandergrift. So I am now in my 22nd year on the MTA board, and this is the first time they ever let me go first in one of these here. Thank you, Steve, very much. But I'm particularly pleased to appear before you this afternoon. First, to thank you for the supplemental appropriation that the council adopted several weeks ago to begin implementation of Mayor O'Connell's ambitious Choose How You Move Transportation Improvement Program. These funds will enable us to jumpstart several significant project and service initiatives, including the expansion of our popular Access on Demand, same-day door-to-door service for people with disabilities to include weekends, the addition of 2 new WeGo Link Mobility on-demand zones, and a 65% expansion in our transit security program. All of these are in process, with security expansion 80% of the way there, and Access on Demand expansion and new WeGo Link zones slated to start on May 31st. I've spent over 20 years on this board because I see on a day-to-day basis the crucial role that public transportation plays to lift our neighbors in need. And these specific service expansion initiatives are shining examples of how transit can support our community. In addition, your support through the supplemental appropriation also tees us up for the future, for our future growth, with funding to acquire expansion buses, adding more recruitment and training staff, collaborating with our partners at Elongated Transit Union Local 1235 to expand and enhance our employee development and retention programs, and begin the process of developing a new bus operations facility and a second downtown transit center. I would like to call particular attention to your funding of our expanded security efforts and Mayor O'Connell and Chief of Police John Drake's commitment, unwavering commitment to stand up for a transit-specific policing unit within Metro Nashville Police Department. We have always enjoyed a tremendous working relationship with our police department, and we look forward to deepening this engagement and even further for the benefit of our customers, our community, and our drivers. For the MTA board, the safety and security of our customers and staff will always be our top priority. Next, I am equally excited to support Mayor O'Connell's proposed fiscal year 2025-26 operating budget for WeGo. At this time, I'd like to turn the microphone over to our CEO, Steve Bland, to discuss the initiatives proposed in this budget. And I thank you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. As Gail mentioned, my name is Steve Bland. I'm the CEO of the National Metro Transit Authority, doing business as WeGo Public Transit. The support of this and prior councils has allowed WeGo to expand its role and success in the community. Your support has been crucial in helping us both survive and thrive through the pandemic and come back stronger. We were one of the fastest transit agencies in the nation to restore full service and full ridership levels after the pandemic. And the completion of the Dr. Ernest Rip Patton Jr. North Nashville Transit Center last year and the accompanying service expansion to serve this neighborhood has resulted in a 36% increase in ridership on the routes that connect in North Nashville. We look forward to similar results in many other corners of the county, starting with this budget. If you adopt Mayor O'Connell's budget proposal with this budget cycle, you'll see the following improvements in this calendar year. Starting on July 6th, customers would see improved midday frequency on the Route 6 Lebanon Pike, improved Saturday and Sunday frequency on the Route 23 Dickerson Pike, the Route 50 Charlotte Pike, and the Route 56 Gallatin Pike, improved weekday evening frequency on the Route 55 Murfreesboro Pike and Route 56 Gallatin Pike, improved Sunday frequency on the Route 55 Murfreesboro Pike, improved Saturday and Sunday evening frequency on the Route 55 Murfreesboro Pike and the Route 56 Gallatin Pike, and new school year services to both McGavock and Glencliff High Schools. If this budget is approved, we would undertake another round of service expansion in January of 2026 to include an earlier start to our service day on Sundays. Currently, we start up at 6:15. We would start up at 5:15 on 13 of our busiest routes, and a later end to our service day on Sundays, extending our service day end from 11:15 p.m. currently to 1:15 a.m., and that would coincide with the other 6 days of the week. We would include improved weekday midday frequency on the Route 3 West End and the Route 18 Airport, and improved weekend frequency on the Route 52 Nolensville Pike route, and improved weekend evening frequency on the Route 23 Dickerson Pike and additional WeGo link zones. Finally, and I know this is of interest to many of you on the council, and I know you asked this question to Ms. Apkowitz during the mayor's office hearing, but the adoption of this budget would also allow us to implement the LIFT, or Low-Income Fare Subsidy Program, by the end of this calendar year. As adopted in the Choose How You Move program, LIFT would provide free transit passes to low-income individuals and households in Davidson County. Thanks to coordination through the mayor's office, we're currently designing this program with associated metro departments that serve low-income populations, and will also be engaging with many of our advocacy organizations in the coming weeks. In allocating scarce public resources among the many worthwhile services provided by the metropolitan government, you all have an unenviable task. During prior year budget hearings, you've heard me refer to your challenge of expanding transit service within the confines of the general fund budget as something akin to a Hunger Games exercise, where our system growth often has to come at least at stunting the growth of other very worthwhile metro public services. This year, I'm pleased to say, not this year. Thanks to the dedicated transit funding made available under Mayor O'Connell's Choose How You Move program, not only will the adoption of Mayor O'Connell's proposed budget allow for a meaningful expansion in transit services, but it will also provide relief to the general fund in the form of a reduction of our general fund subsidy. If we were to provide the services proposed in this budget without Choose How You Move funding, we would require an additional $11.4 million of general fund subsidy. So that essentially is being returned for other purposes within the metropolitan government. So with that, Madam Chair, thank you for the opportunity to address the community, and we welcome your questions.
Thank you, Director Bland and Chair Carr-Williams, for this presentation, and thank you for your service to our city. Director, you read my mind. I was going to say this is my, sixth budget cycle, maybe. I think it may be my sixth one. And years past, I have thought about how we have had to really make a lot of sacrifices to try to increase funding for transit year after year. So I'm excited that we didn't have to do that this year. I'm excited that we're able to fund it with a better mechanism. And Chair Carr-Williams, thank you for your 22 years of service. We cannot glance over that, so thank you. That is a huge commitment. And then lastly, I want to thank you all as a parent of a graduating senior who is an MNPS student who rides the bus on a weekly basis, almost daily basis, using the bus to get to and from school. It really has made a difference in my family as well as other families in the city. So thank you so much for providing that service so that our students can have both independence and the ability to get around the city. And with that, I will open up questions with our Chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Chair Parker, you're recognized.
Hey, good afternoon. Thank you all for being here and for the update and presentation. I just had a couple of quick questions. And y'all have heard me say this, probably everybody in the room has heard me say this about the low income fare program. And my hope is that I know that we're trying to target low income folks and we want to make sure that that's the recipient of this, but sometimes these programs that are means tested have barriers. You know, maybe somebody's not already enrolled in another program where you can just kind of take that certification and apply it here. I know that in some jurisdictions they handle even like SNAP benefits and things. Like you can get it on a short-term basis just for asking for it, basically. You don't have to bring your documents. You don't have to show proof of income. You know, you can't just keep doing that forever. You got to come in and sit down with somebody and show them your income at some point. But just making sure that we're doing this in like the most low barrier way, that we're not requiring people to be enrolled in other programs that might have these stringent requirements and all that. I know you've heard me say it probably 10 times now, but I just want to say it every time we have the conversation to reiterate the point.
So I wasn't going to frame my answer saying I've heard it from you 10 times. I was going to say Chair Parker and I have had this dialogue to make the program as simple for the users as possible. That's both the dialogue we're having with the other metro agencies like Social Service, Homeless Division. That's the dialogue we expect to continue to have with our advocacy organizations. We're also doing best practice research of other similar programs around the country to see how they're administered. And we've gotten a lot of good information via that. The overall goal of the program is to make it absolutely as simple as possible for people who need the program, but also to exercise the appropriate stewardship and financial control to make sure that we don't see, you know, I think the term's overused, but waste, fraud, and abuse in the system. And I would anticipate in working with the mayor's program, chief program officer on this, that you'll see pretty early and pretty frequent report outs on the progress of the program.
Excellent. I have sort of a very general question and then a very specific one. In like working with RTA and surrounding communities, just has the conversation about increased investment into the regional system, has that shifted since November? Are some of our neighbors and partners, can you just tell me what the vibe is there?
I would say the results here in November definitely changed that dialogue, to be honest. And I don't have Gail's tenure, but I've been here a little while. In the same way the 2018 outcome kind of flipped that discussion around. A couple of more active areas that we're looking regionally. So last year, the RTA board adopted a future vision plan for the STAR that included both short and long-term approaches. And we've been in active conversation with our Wilson County colleagues. Choose How You Move, the Choose How You Move initiative, that program plan essentially covers the cost of what we would need to do in the short term for the Davidson County element. So we've had very productive conversations with our Wilson County partners. And then the other thing that's been occurring, especially in the I-24 corridor with Rutherford County, but also to some extent the I-65 corridor with Williamson County, is TDOT's taken, frankly, a very proactive and leadership role in bringing us to the table on how we integrate strong public transit into the governor's choice lanes proposal, to the point where they actually commissioned CDM Smith to do a study of best practices on how this could be incorporated. So we're actually finding that as they issue their solicitations to private concessionaires for choice lanes, there's an expectation that they'll be addressing how we, whether that's capital investment in things like transit centers and park and rides, or even service investments to upgrade the quality of service. And then the final thing I'd mention, we are in our periodic upgrade or periodic update. Many of you, I know Councilmember Allen was here for the N Motion plan. Seems like yesterday, but it was a while ago. We're updating that plan now on the MTA side too, but actually really focusing on the regional side and what we do with our regional connections.
That's fantastic. And thank you for that information. The last quick question, hopefully, is you talked about Route 18 frequency improvements early next year if this budget is approved. That's super duper exciting. So 2 questions about that. what, do we know what the frequency would improve to? And is there going to be any corresponding improvement? Like if you didn't know where the bus station is and you come off the airplane, it's like pretty hard to find. And you have to walk through like every other possible way to leave the airport before you get to it. So, our friends at the airport, are they interested in improving the situation? If you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
I promise, I see a lot of our staff in the back. I promise I did not set him up with that question. Actually, we're meeting with the airport this week on that, not just connected to the Route 18, but over time under Choose How You Move, Route 18, not just with the frequency improvements planned for this year, which are pretty much geared off peak because we need to expand our fleet size before we can do general frequency improvements. But you'll see improvements of the frequency of the Route 18. You'll see an extension of the Route 55. So you'll have basically two legs to that route, one that does the traditional Murfreesboro Road down to Antioch, one that kind of veers off on Donaldson Pike, serves the airport. We expect that'll be a major improvement, frankly, for people going into the southern downtown, the tourist community. You'll see an extension of the 52B Nolensville Pike out to the airport and the creation of a new crosstown route connecting the airport to Donaldson Station, where we're working on a new transit center, as well as the Opryland, Opry Mills area. So all of that means that the airport in general will see about a 5 to 6 time expansion in service over time. And essentially what we're meeting with the airport on is to plan for that expansion. We've had prior meetings and they've been extremely supportive. Now that Choose How You Move has passed, we're getting into that tactical planning. And that tactical planning also looks at, maybe improving directional signage, being able for us to install digital real-time information, at the stops, fare vending equipment, that type of thing. So, I do have to give a shout out to Airport CEO Doug Crullen. He's been incredibly welcoming to us in that dialogue. And frankly, they've been just sort of waiting for us to say, okay, here's what we need to unfold. So stay tuned for more detail. Be happy to come back to your committee to report out on that.
When you think that's appropriate, we would love to have you. Did you say, do we know what January 26, 18 frequency would step up to?
It'll move from 40 minutes to 30 minutes. It's not a huge improvement. Again, there's more improvement downstream as we acquire additional fleet. Our chair pointed out with the supplemental appropriation, we were able to place an order for 12 expansion buses, and we'll continue to work on that program over the next few years. So you may have heard Kendra mention the sequencing of projects. So there are precursors to certain things. Obviously, we're hiring more people to drive buses is a precursor to everything. Some of our service expansion requires additional vehicles. And we're currently, depending on the type of bus, on anywhere from a 14 to 24-month lead time on bus delivery. And then some will require the deployment of additional neighborhood transit centers to make those connections, like what we have in North Nashville. And also, I want to emphasize the importance of the secondary downtown hub, because I know I've been before this body before reporting that Central is pretty much, I would like to say at capacity. It's really over capacity, particularly at peak hours. If you're there at 3:30 to 5 in the afternoon, you will see buses queued up on James Robertson Parkway, waiting for a place to berth. So a lot of these projects that are longer lead time, really will be critical precursors to some of the really necessary service improvements.
Absolutely. Well, I could probably ask another dozen questions, but I will let other colleagues.
Invite us to committee and we're happy to.
We'd love to have you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Parker. Vice Chair Toombs, did you want to be recognized? Okay. Next in the queue, I have Councilmember Benedict, followed by Councilmember Bradford, followed by Councilmember Evans, followed by Councilmember Gregg, followed by Councilmember Ellis. All right. Councilmember Bradford, you're recognized. Just kidding. Councilmember Benedict, you're recognized.
Russ, if you want to get married, I don't think we're each other's type. Thank you, Chair. I will say, Mr. Bland, it is great to sit here this budget cycle and look at you and say, after 6 years, when I first met with you, we talked about a dedicated revenue stream for transit. It's really nice to have that now. So thank you for your work to help get us there. I'm curious, I wanted to talk about 3 different things for you. One is the federal funding, looking at that at a glance, it looks like the federal funding, direct and pass-through, was reduced by $7.5 million. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, it's really more of a, what I'll call a timing or a sequencing issue. So our sources of federal funding really kind of fall into 2 buckets. We have a pretty steady stream of formula funding that flows to the region every year. That's been steady over the years under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. We saw a significant increase, and then it sort of levels up. With the continuing resolution that Congress just passed, we saw about a 2% increase in those funds. And those have essentially, every now and then when you have, the federal government shut down or what have you, we may have a cash flow disruption, but really that's been very steady. And then there's a variety of the discretionary grant sources. And I know the question I've gotten from media and community organizations is now what's been happening. We had 5 discretionary grant awards in the pipeline at the change of administration. And actually, as of about a week or 2 ago, we heard about the last one. So all 5 have cleared and been contracted. So I actually feel a little embarrassed because I know I talked to a lot of my department head peers at Metro who haven't been that fortunate, but to date we have not seen any interruption or any disruption. The most recent one to be awarded, I'm actually very excited about. It's a SMART grant, technology grant to help us working in the Murfreesboro Pike corridor. We're working with Vanderbilt University and Penn State University to do some adaptive dispatch methods to say, until we fully build out a bus rapid transit line along the corridor, it may be difficult to get faster running buses, but at least we can get more consistent and more reliable service through the use of technology. So far, as I tell people, so far so good, but please keep your eyes open.
And I'll add to that as well. I think you're talking about the reduction from last year in federal.
That's right.
That actually was provided by Choose How You Move funding as well to put us in a better financial position as we're doing expansion. So for many years, the MTA has been really required because of our limited funding to use capital dollars for operating expenses, which is not a financial best practice. And so this shows you that we have been able to shift that over to the state of good repair side on the capital side. That will also, you'll see less requests from us on the capital side in general funds as well. So that's a benefit here, but also a benefit to the financial stability of the agency as we enter into expansion.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I'm curious also, well, by the way, I should say the people of District 7 love the number 4, the number 34, the number 56, the number 71, and the number 76. So if people live in Inglewood and Madison and don't think that we have good transit, we have great transit in our neck of the woods. We'll say when I moved to Inglewood 26 years ago, Ellington Parkway was a secret. Now the number 34 is our Ellington Parkway secret, but I hope that it's not as the result of me saying that. But speaking of that, I know our drivers, there's a thing called the sitting disease. Our drivers are seated, of course, for their entire shifts. What kinds of things from a budget perspective would you be able to implement to help improve their health and safety?
So one of the key project
Their
initiatives.
health.
One of the key project initiatives, not one, but a bunch of them, are our neighborhood and regional transit centers. So in addition to being an important customer amenity and a convenience for making connections, they're an important employee facility because implicit in each of those centers is employee break facilities, employee restroom facilities, basically a place for them to, a layover point where they have time to recover. And back to Councilmember Parker's question about the airport, that's one of the items on our checklist for our airport layover point. And then the other piece we alluded to in the opening remarks that Gail mentioned on the supplemental appropriation, we're working very closely with our union partners at ATU 1235, particularly focused, we're really gearing up recruitment, obviously, because over the term of Choose How You Move, we'll need about 400 additional employees. Obviously, most of those are going to be operators, mechanics, servicers, custodians, that type of position. So working very closely with the union on our retention initiatives and really getting to the heart of why people might want to leave that job, whether that's as you state, the rigors of the position or the hours or childcare issues or what have you, to kind of hit at that. But the overall goal is to make sure over time that every route has a safe, attractive, comfortable place for that operator at the end of the line to be able to take a break, catch a breath, get a bite to eat, and obviously do what we all need to do from time to time.
Well, and I think something that I'd love to see down the pike, and I'm just thinking about it as we are here today, is maybe some sort of a gym facility.
Yeah.
Right, so that folks can work out when they, to get them moving, because we're asking them to be seated for so long. My last question, Chair, thank you for indulging me. My last question is about free fare. We get that question a lot. What can we do to implement that? How much would it cost? And, why? And anyway, those two things really.
Sure.
Thank you.
So our total operating income, which is overwhelming majority is from passenger fares, between 11 and 12 million. The cost of actually converting systems to free fare becomes more than that. Cities that have done it, in fact, there are several that have done it that are now trying to go back. There's additional expenses associated with security, onboard security in particular, and then supplemental services to address overcrowding. The other thing I would say about it was an important reason behind what we're calling the LIFT program, or the low-income fare ticket program, is when we survey customers about desired changes, I'll say, fares really don't come up very much. It's always, I need more service, I need more frequent service, I need later service, I need better connections. So the challenge of going to free fare is, obviously it would have a direct benefit on a lot of riders who use it. But it also, for lack of a better word, takes off the hook some of our corporate and institutional partners. We've had a lot of success with our WeGo Ride program, engaging corporations, universities, businesses in underwriting the cost of fares. So that's, frankly, I think where we are right now, this is my opinion, I do not pretend to speak for our chair or the board, resources are better invested in better service at this point. We are continuing to work on fare simplification. So the quick ticket program was a major boon, and we continue to see more and more people convert over. With fare capping, if you use quick ticket, you're basically capped at $4 a day or $65 in a 30-day period. So that contains your expense. And we are also, I'm going to say it, and now it's probably either on TV or I know our vice mayor will be trying it tomorrow. We are testing our open payment system now, where you'll be able to just use your chip card or your Apple Wallet, Google Pay.
All of them.
Am I wrong?
Yep, you're right.
So she's a younger generation, so she knows.
It's not
these
Amex.
things. So that essentially, rather than have, do I have to get the quick ticket app? Do I have to get a card? You'll be able to use whatever you happen to have in your wallet to be able to do that.
Keep up the good work. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so very much. Councilmember Bradford, you're recognized.
Which one?
I was trying to think of a joke and y'all beat me to it.
So Councilmember Benedict did take my question, but I was also going to state, when you were listing off all the route expansions and improvements, it seems like in every category I kept hearing the 55, which makes me happy because that is probably the biggest transit line in my district, and it helps the most low-income folks, not just in my district, but in the entire Southeast quadrant. So I'm really excited to hear that. Also, Glencliff and McGavock are my two cluster high schools, so that means all the students in my district will have better access to get to school. So I'm happy about that. One thing I want to bring up for maybe future planning is I'm seeing a lot of success with some of the ridership to Geodis Park, for example. It's something that I would love to participate in, but the routes that are currently doing that, for me to utilize one of those, I'd actually have to drive past Geodis Park.
Yeah.
to access one of them to go back to Geodis Park. So I'm wondering if you're looking at expanding other routes, like routes that serve the eastern side of the county, so that folks from Donaldson Hermitage can take the bus to games.
Yep.
And not just Geodis, but other, whether it's Bridgestone Arena or
Right.
football, whatever.
I would say so it's an issue that's definitely been coming up in the strategic plan update, both regionally and locally, to put more focus, not at the expense of something else, but more focus on our special events, our evening entertainment options, what have you. For instance, on the regional side, last year we started piloting running our Murfreesboro regional bus, so the 84, and from Murfreesboro with a stop at Antioch to Geodis Park. And we've seen this season that start to grow for the weekend games. We're generally seeing ridership on both the 52 and the 77. So as we start building out transit centers and as we start building out more park and ride lots under the program, you're going to see more special event type services, be that soccer at Geodis Park, Titans games, whatever that might be. But also, more reinstatement of some of the express services that we used to have. Right now, a big part of the challenge is because we really lack those facilities for people from a neighborhood to be able to drive to a park and ride or drive to a transit center and park. So you're sort of at the mercy of who you collect on the route. So that's definitely a focal area. And I would also add that the teams, Nashville SC, the Titans, the Predators, have been really good about sharing data about fan base location and areas to try to focus initial efforts on areas where we can probably expect the highest ridership return.
And just a follow-up, again, a thought about, it's great that we're doing a lot of this for game day events. I think in the past, there's been some push maybe for like New Year's and 4th of July.
Yep.
But I'm wondering if kind of putting on that agenda for let's talk about this, a lot of the events that occur, whether it's a concert at Bridgestone, a concert at Nissan, or a concert like non-sporting events where we know a lot of people will be, out. And this may be where some of these arenas and these venues, because here's where our tickets are sold the most, or kind of, to your point, sharing that data.
Yep.
So there's kind of something kind of put out there, like the more we can get people on the bus to these events, less vehicles on the street, plus, let's all be real. When people go to a concert or a game, there might be some alcohol enjoyed. So getting those people from behind the wheel of a car is also going to improve safety as well.
So long-term, we work very collaboratively with TDOT, NDOT, and the Nashville Downtown Partnership on the Connect Downtown plan that NDOT led, and that includes transit identification of transit priority corridors through the downtown core. If I were looking at a long-term vision of this issue, Geodis Park is an outlier. That's sort of because the location will require a more unique solution. But we're ideally situated for most of our event venues, Nissan Stadium, both old and new, Bridgestone Arena, Ryman Auditorium, Schermerhorn Symphony Hall, TPAC, that if we can design that downtown circulation the right way, that 55 that runs through your neighborhood or the 56 that runs through Councilmember Benedict's neighborhood not only can go into town, but essentially circulate downtown in an expedited manner and get people closer to those event venues. I'm not sure if Councilmember Coupin is here. There. So in much the same way, Councilmember Parker and I have dialogued on the simplicity of the low-income fare program, Councilmember Coupin and I have dialogued about the direct connection of the 22 Bordeaux bus to Bridgestone Arena. And I think as we build out the Connect Downtown plan with WeGo Central, Elizabeth Duff Transit Center at WeGo Central, eventually the Sobro Hub, eventually the East Bank Hub, there'll be tremendous opportunities really and with improved frequency and expanded span, ultimately 24 hours on our major routes. There are going to be tremendous opportunities for us to be able to deploy our regular bus system for people trying to access those entertainment options.
I appreciate that. I've got another question, but I think I'm going to hold on to it because I think it's not really a budget. It's more of a future operations. So I can ask it to you later, but thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Bradford. Councilmember Evans, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two questions, and the first one, Chair Parker actually reminded me of it as he was speaking. On Access Ride, I'm having like more folks who are disabled who are trying to get connected to be able to go through the process for Access Ride. Will Access Ride pick up people for their interviews?
Yes, if you
Okay.
call to register for access, you have presumptive eligibility until we can figure out that you are or are not eligible.
Thank you for indulging me on that question. And then the other one, kind of going back to the other county conversation, like Wilson County that you referenced, that kind of thing. I know that like I am challenged because I have part of Davidson County, then I skip over Wilson County, then I pick up part of Davidson County again. And so the people that are kind of on the other side of Wilson County that are trying to get to Davidson, it's either they can't use, some of our services because of that, having to, not being able to cross the county lines. With having dedicated funding, does that opportunity improve for them at all? Like, for instance, with the Access Ride?
It can and it may. One of the things we're looking at in what I'll call the data dig on the strategic plan update is really origin destination data. So you might have a person in Hermitage whose better alternative for, say, a doctor's appointment or a place to shop might be Mount Juliet. So as we sort of identify that granular level data, that will be an alternative that the MTA board can look at to say, do we extend, trips originating into Davidson County into the adjoining, same thing Brentwood to Brentwood, Davidson County side, Brentwood, Williamson County side, or, up near the Rivergate area, does Hendersonville make more sense? So that's definitely data we're looking at to consider, especially for those, and not just access the door-to-door program for people who are qualified, but even in the WeGo Link program, that may very well make some sense.
When do I start my Chair Parker style follow-up on that question?
As soon as NDOT's done tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Councilmember Gregg, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. On behalf of the families in the McGavick cluster, I just want to say thank you. We've heard loud and clear about this need for service to McGavick High School. So thank you. This will greatly improve access for the students. My question is, what is the proposed frequency change for the number 6 along Lebanon Pike?
Oh, I put that in the detail. Sometimes when I give you an instant answer, I'm making it up. So sometimes I'll
We'll take an approximate
go
guess.
to the detail.
I get asked that question a lot. I'm just curious.
The 6, I had Katie's numbers. I'll tell you what, I'll
You can-
email you that answer in the morning.
Thank you. But again, thank you for.
I want to say 30 minutes, but right now I'm making it up. I'll
Okay.
get you a definitive answer tomorrow. Oh, I'm getting a thumbs up in the back that it's 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
Okay. So if I'm lying, I have corroborators.
Thank you, Councilmember Gregg. Councilmember Ellis, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Also, thank you for recognizing me, although I'm not on this committee. Question that I had, speaking from the lens of a rider and also a driver, although I haven't gone in depth with the budget, where could I see a reflection of some of the safety measures that are being implemented for us?
Sure. Well, with detailed interest, we can give you copies of the briefings we've done with the MTA board on 2 or 3 occasions. What we did, and this was, and Gail alluded to the collaborative partnership we had with MNPD, About 2 years ago, we engaged an organization called Marine Tiger Technologies that does really international transit security consulting. And they did an exhaustive review of all of our practices, of all of our facilities, of all of our services to make recommendations. In fact, the standing up of the transit policing unit was very high on their recommendations list. And it goes down to the level of procedural changes and what have you. So I'd be happy to get you as much or as little detail or anywhere in between. And I would also add that Tracy Ward, the president of our union, has been a terrific partner in that, both in terms of meeting with us, meeting with the consultants, but also helping us engage with our workforce on a lot of those changes.
Okay, so is there a line item that goes towards safety and security?
In our budget, yeah, there are actually a couple major items, and then there are a whole bunch buried. The two major items are contracted security line item, and right now, and you'll probably, have you all done the police department?
That's
No.
Okay. I suspect you'll hear about it in Chief Drake's budget presentation. Right now and historically, our spending on police has been through MNPD's secondary employment unit. That is continuing on. In fact, there's an increase in that budget line for the upcoming year proposed. Over time, that secondary employment will transition into the full transit policing unit.
and
So let me ask it this way. I don't ride the bus, but if I were downtown and wanted to go to the transit hub, right now, I frankly wouldn't feel safe taking a bus out to Antioch. So what would be your response to that as far as measures that are in place?
We have at any given point in time, anywhere from 12 to 15 security and police officers in place, particularly during peak hours. On an average weekday, we have 17,000 people pass through that facility. So I will tell you, are there incidents that happen? Sure. But I've been in that building at all times of the day or night, and I would ride a bus out of there anytime.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ellis. Do we have any other questions? Chair Parker, you're good? All right. Seeing none, thank you all so much for your time and your service to our city. Thank you for your presentation. And we now have you all can make your way up. Colleagues, this will start in your budget book on page 300.